everyone, and welcome to History Makers, the series that goes behind the scenes of the West Coast Eagles' 1992 Premiership season. Today, I'm very fortunate to be joined by four members of the team, each with their separate roles, but all as crucial as each other. Welcome Paul Harding, Karl Langdon, Peter Sumich, and Tony Evans. How are we, boys?
Very good.
Good, thanks.
Excellent to see you all. Tony,
excellent, mate.
I'm going to hand you the new ball and kick things off.
Yeah.
You actually had the pill in the final seconds of the game. It's a historic moment that gets played ad nauseum.
Yeah. Quite
a cool moment to be a part of. What was going through the scone in the final seconds?
Yeah, so Woosha kicked it to me, and mate, I've got no recollection of what actually happened to the footy. Everyone said, what'd you do with it? I'm thinking, I have no idea. I don't know if I kicked it away or I should have stuffed it under my jumper actually. But it was such a blur, mate, to be honest, and so overcome with emotions and all the rest of it. But I have no recollection, so I can't add any light on into what happened to the footy.
Shame you couldn't pinch it, yes. Yeah.
So I reckon Jacko took it because he took the cup.
Took everything else.
So he took everything else. So I reckon he might have took the footy as well.
Jacko cup.
He fessed up to it in last week's episode. He said, yeah, I did hog it a bit. It's a moment I'm not particularly proud of. So at least he's come to an admission, Karl.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that I don't know that he has admitted yet, but we'll find out, eh?
Exactly. Sumo, you kicked almost the ceiling goal of that grand final, and the celebration was as jubilant as ever. Was the emotion finally setting in at that point as to it's all happening for real at that point?
Yeah, look, I took the mark and I knew, we were enough in front really with 2 or 3, 4 minutes to go. And I thought if I kick this, of course, all over. But then I was going back and I said, all right, if I kick this, I'm going to run down to full back and just do like a streaker run all the way down to full back. And I thought that'll be good, and there's high-five blokes on the way through. So I kicked the goal and I started to run, and then I got about 20 metres in and I thought, this is all too hard, I'll just stop here. I had to run too far. I didn't want to go outside 50 Evo. That's what I wasn't allowed to.
It was a bungee cord.
I stopped just inside.
You jumped out of the gates with the celebration, absolutely. Paul, your journey was a classic one, coming from St Kilda and Hawthorn, and then the whole clearance, not being a part of the inaugural Eagle team, and then coming in 92. Did you ever think you'd be waltzing in? I know the 91 grand final was there, but did you think this was feasible in your first year at the club?
No, not at all. It's spent some time, a couple of years at Hawthorn, and they played in premierships. And I think clubs that play in them, you've got to be very lucky to actually be part of a team. And St Kilda, I didn't think when I got to the Eagles that it was more of just getting a game rather than playing in a premiership. I had a point to prove to myself and I had to prove it to the teammates. And it turned out lucky.
One thing he did, though, was work hard, right? And, this goes for a few of us around this table because we weren't that good, right? In the big scheme of things, we weren't that good. So if we didn't work hard, we didn't get a game. So we had to work hard. We had to play our part in the team, and that's one thing that bloke did, that's for sure.
I can't believe that you were a ruckman. I thought you should have been a centre-half forward, centre-half back. For your size, Stiffy, it was unbelievable.
A lot of people saying that, lucky to get a game in a half-back flank.
Yeah.
Some of the blokes said, what are they, 6'10" or something, 206? So
it was a great effort.
I can't speak more highly of Stiffy, not because he's sitting next to me now, but as a rover and roving to him, he's against John Barnes and always taller opposition. He just competed so well, used his body so well. He had a beautiful hands. His work rate around the ground was second to none. Always looking out for his rovers and blocking and throwing arms around. And I can't describe how much respect I have for him as a player and as a person.
And virtually rucked all day.
All day.
Really, we didn't go in with 2 ruckmen most of the time.
The pinch hitter was, you're looking at him.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
And at the end of it, how big were some of those blokes?
Oh, they were huge.
Weren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Let's go, if we want to go through them, we could list a few off, but it wasn't easy.
Did ruck the game and I got cramp in the last 5 minutes. The calls come out, go to the forward pocket. I get to stay on the ground. And I went to run after the first ball and couldn't because the cramp just came back again. So I sat on the bench at the end.
Well, you look at the whole final series, you were basically doing it solo. You see the other pinch-hitting ruckman, you have 3 hit-outs, saw you with a couple, and you got Jacko going ruck. So you're basically, holding him up on your shoulders.
Yeah, you're just used to doing it. I did it for 7 or 8 years. And that's the way it was in those days.
What's unique about this group is 3 of the 4 members didn't play in that 1991 grand final. Karl, how difficult was it for you to be watching from the sidelines through injury, missing that game, and then being a part of the preparation for what was the 92 onslaught?
It wasn't great for me, to be honest. I mean, I broke my arm 2 weeks before, and then I've been playing with a fractured foot for 10 weeks, so then I had that operated on. And then I was working for a radio station. I actually was sitting out front of Flinders Street Station. And after they lost 91, Mick, I sort of went in to console the boys, and I went into the room, and the first bloke Mick tore strips off was me. You talk too much, he says. And he really got into me. So it was a I think a catalyst to work hard and prove that I was good enough to be in the team or get my spot back in the team, because you'd lost your spot. So I was a part of getting back in the team. So that's what it was for me. That's how it was at the end of that game.
Sumich, you were the one that played in that game. 5 goals in a losing GF, nothing to be shy about. How was your feeling, a few of the other senior members, that 91 season done and dusted, heading into 92? What was the feeling personally and amongst the group of belief and confidence?
Yeah, look, I think the belief was there in 91. Of course, we were the best side, I thought, throughout the year. Unfortunately, we weren't the best side on the day, grand final day. And, all credit to Hawthorn. But the disappointing thing about 91, and I know we're here to talk about 92, but it was a catalyst. At half-time, we were 10 points down. But in the rooms, it was all over. And the disappointing thing, and I'm not saying it, I was probably one with a couple of others who were having okay games. So I was very boisterous and, come on, we're 10 points, we're kicking with the breeze, we can win this and, win this quarter and be in front of it. So I was up and about, but there was too many blokes with their heads down. And they know who they are. And after the game, of course, we got thrashed. Same happened in, I think, 92, where we were about 10 points down, but it was a different environment. You had blokes going, we've got this. And the whole group knew. So it's amazing, from 12 months earlier, we had a group of players who were flat and down to 10 points down again 12 months later at half-time, but very boisterous, and we knew we were going to win. It was just the belief was there. So we got that belief after that game. I reckon we trained hard and then slowly went through the season in 92 and got the belief.
Just on that point there, Sumich, one thing I do remember greatly in the grand final was coming in at half-time, down, but not concerned.
Same, exactly the same. We felt Geelong had rolled their...
Maybe because Barn kicked a couple of goals before half-time.
A couple of crucial runs, yeah.
But we felt Geelong, who were heavy scorers, like they could really kick, hit the scoreboard, and they had some stars, some genuine stars, and I felt, and I think we all felt, that they'd rolled the dice and played their best footy and were 10 points down, and we hadn't even really got going.
We'll get to all those points, including all of your great assists, Karl. I got them coming up in the archives, mate, so sit tight. I won't forget about you. But Tony, you're coming off a premiership with the Tigers in the Waffle at 22 years of age. Is that correct?
That's right.
And how did you feel? You feeling confident that you could cement yourself into this team heading into the season?
Oh, not at all. I never felt confident about getting selected or being worthy of anything, really. And I think that's probably just my personality and probably drove me to train hard and play the best that I could. And as Karl said in the sort of the intro, I felt privileged to be able to be in a side full of so many great players. And just, was happy to fill my role and do my little bit, because I think that was, we obviously had our stars, but there were some good foot soldiers in there, and, I was probably just one of those.
My knowledge of Barney over the period is a big game player, and I know he probably doesn't like that saying, but even during the season, there'll be certain games where we're playing a top side or away and against a top side, and it was a big game. He'd produce. There'd be other games where you'd be just in the backwash a little bit. It was a lesser game, and Tony would just bowl along. But then come the big games...
Pop out.
Pop out.
10 minutes of just bang, bang, off he goes.
But the big games, I always... he's always renowned for that. That's in my opinion, because that's what I saw out in the footy field. So
where's Barney come from?
Barney Rubble.
The
Flintstones.
Like as in a lookalike?
As a lookalike, yeah. The feet are going a million miles an hour, but you're not actually going very fast. And obviously, I used to have blonde hair, so that came out.
Are you still dying?
Yeah, I am.
Brilliant. Well, we had Woosha and a few others in here last week, and the 92 season didn't get off to the smoothest of starts. Let's have a listen to your captain.
we were such a good team, and that kick in the guts losing the 91 grand final, I've got no doubt there was a focus on if we make the grand final again, we're going to be ready for it, but we forgot you got to do the hard work to qualify. You know, that like the hard work starts in round one. You don't just cruise through and try and say we're now better ready, better prepared for a final series and a grand final.
So, Karl, a stumbly beginning. It was 2 wins, 3 losses and a draw, I reckon. There are a few games in there that might come to a few people's recollections. You know, you got the draw.
Fitzroy. Well, the Fitzroy one I'll remember forever. That's when I was in tears.
So this has been spoken about a little bit, Karl.
Yeah, well, what happened was we all got... Mick basically came in and said, I'll leave it to you blokes, and walked out. So then we all got in a room, and essentially it was about each other. And
who was leading that, Karl?
Well, the leaders were. So Michael Brennan and John Worsfold, they were the captain and vice-captain of our team. So they were the ones that kicked things off, but everyone had their chance to have a go.
Was it you and Willow that were targeted more specifically than others?
Oh, yeah, well, I suppose, you know, like some of us are a little bit more extroverted than others. So, you know, you can have a crack knowing that you'll hopefully get a response, right? And so whilst it might hurt at the time, when it's coming from those that you respect the most, you have to respond. That's what you got to do. So hopefully that's what I did.
The match committee was sitting outside sort of listening in with a cup, you know, on the wall. Said it was quite vocal and quite fierce, but a lot say it was, you know, a catalyst to turning the season around. What do you boys remember of it? Of the beginning in general?
I was emergency. I didn't play, but I was in on the meeting, and I found it was a confronting meeting for sure. We knocked the scab off a whole lot of stuff about, you know, the need to improve and not let each other down and all pull together as one. And it was like an extremely powerful meeting, probably the most powerful meeting I've ever been involved in. And really from that point on, I think we were starting to, you know, we gelled and started to build, and it wasn't just like a switch, but it was clearly a turning point or a T-junction that we came up to, and we didn't fall apart. We actually stuck together and worked harder and more fiercely together, and the results speak for themselves.
So you were coming off a 100-goal season in 91, but you were injured early doors. I think you played 2 of the first 8 games. What are your recollections of it, almost a little bit helpless from the sidelines?
Yeah, well, that's why they lost those early games, because I wasn't playing. But anyway, leading into that, I got suspended, and talking about Mick, it's a pre-season game, and we're playing Geelong at Waverley, and Mark Neal was playing on me, ex-Melbourne coach, and he was running off me, you know, in this pre-season, and I was a bit unfit, and then I said, listen here, mate, don't keep running. And he kept running down to the wing and then run back, and I had to chase him. And
how annoying.
Chasing, yeah, very annoying. So he did it twice, and then the third time I said, listen here, you go again. I says, I'm going to smack you one. So he went again, and then he got to the wing, and as he turned around, I went, bang. And I'll give him one. He went down. The boundary umpire reported me, I got 2 weeks. So I missed rounds 1 and 2. And after the game, that week, when I got the 2 weeks, Mick absolutely brought me in the office and just tore strips off me. Absolutely tore strips. And I said, oh, geez, I've got to train hard. So I went out, trained. It was, I think, the Thursday just before the first game, and I wasn't going to play, but because I was suspended. And then I rolled my ankle. So then like you said, I missed probably 4 or 5 weeks all up. But I remember Mick giving it to me, and I reckon that there really spurred me on, but the playing group just had a bad run early on, and we were always going to come good, in my opinion, because we had leaders who could cop a spray on the chin and move on. It was never personal. I've given out a fair few sprays in my time on the footy field. I reckon Evo.
So mate, you were tough, mate.
Final, when I passed you that one, I actually passed him one, and I never passed inside 50, and he missed it. And I went up to him. I says, "I will never kick you the footy ever again if we lose this game." I says, "You," and I give it to him.
And he's given another one over the top to Roo. So he could have kicked 8. Mm-hmm. He would have kicked 8. Mm-hmm. So he's kicked 6. I mean, Summer was, mate. You were hard. You were hard on people around you and demanding, but I respected that, mate. And I never took it.
Never used to handball though. Like if you're in a better spot, never gave it off. I was sure. And I'm still sure to this day that he must add something in his contract for every goal that was being kicked. I wanted to see that contract.
Niz did offer me that, but I said no.
Yeah.
He did that. They offered me.
No one will kick it to you.
I was never going to do that, but it was never personal. But was it? Like we had a go at each other, and I had blokes have a go at me.
Would you, if he wasn't giving off, or you just knew it was something?
I always used to bag him all the time. That was just banter was important. Like getting, I remember copping it from Barney, and Willow was always, and Louis, like he was probably the quietest, to be honest, like when it came to actually getting into each other, right? He was fierce when it comes to, his contest and attacking the opposition, and, I would...
But if you did something wrong, Louis... 9 times out of 10 would look at you and give you a stare, and you knew. So that was enough. Yeah. Louis wasn't verbal, but he looked at you as if to say, hey, that's not good enough.
I remember Louis, he'd look at you and he'd just clap his hands.
Yeah.
And you just knew that.
Yeah, you would too. I know that look.
And got to remember, Monkey started at half forward in the grand final as well.
Yeah,
so
half forward.
We had another bloke that didn't mind saying a few words either.
And Woosha was demanding, and I think everyone was demanding of each other. And there's no doubt you knew what was expected. And if you strayed a bit, you were told in no uncertain terms.
Well, some say it might have been the injuries or the suspension, but was it any kind of the commercials or the stardom that was getting to you? Can we just play this clip very quickly?
My mum makes me eat a lot of things I don't want to, so that I'll grow up to be big and strong. But she doesn't have to force me to eat tip-top white high five, because it's just like other white bread, but it's got 60% more fibre, so it's better for me.
Have you finished your lunch yet, Peter?
Yes, Mum.
Well, you can go out and play then.
Thanks, Mum.
Was that your mum?
Yes, yeah.
Amazing.
And I got free bread for about 6 years, all right, delivered home. So we had the old tip-top crate delivered with crumpets, bread, the whole lot. We just dished it out to the whole family.
Well, on top of the 20 grand.
Yeah, there's about that.
Wasn't Hank the truck driver for Tip Top?
He was Hank, our property man. He used to work for Tip Top.
Yeah.
So he got you the deal?
Oh, yeah, probably did. South Fremantle boy.
Carl, you were just as charismatic. What was some of the weirder media ops you did in the height of stardom at the Eagles?
Weird? Well, I started in 1990 doing special sports reports for Channel 9. Michael Thompson took me under his wing, and I remember my favourite player, because I grew up barracking for Perth, was Peter Buzasto. And so I did a story on Buzz, talking about the 80s and talking about his mark and goal of the year that he took in 81, and they won the flag that year, and the only difference is that Buzz was about 3 times the size of when he played footy. So to reenact what he'd actually done, he had to get a milk crate and a ladder to actually get over the top of me and sort of... so the little things like that. I remember going out for a story and with the Australian hockey team, and I was the goalkeeper, and they were flicking balls at me, right? This is in 1990, and I don't know if you've ever had hockey balls flicked at you by the best in the world, but I can tell you it's a very unpleasant experience to actually see how good they are and how quick they come to them. You've had a few cricket balls bowled at you. So that sort of stuff.
What about the fly trap?
The fly trap with Heinze, David Hines.
So what's that, for those who don't know?
So basically you put on a suit, which then you bounce off a springboard and you stick to Velcro. So it's got Velcro suit and Velcro. And
Tosser.
There was a couple of times when the boys had too much to drink and a couple of blokes just sandpapered their face, because it was like sandpaper if you didn't land it right.
Boris, when did you have the blonde hair? When did all that kick off?
That was Subi against South Fremantle 87, that was, before I got to West Coast. So Mark Jackson came back from playing for Melbourne to play for South Fremantle, and then one Friday night when we were drinking bourbons night before the game, how things have changed. The boys said, dare you to dye your hair blonde and take the piss out of Jacko. And I said, I'll have a crack at that. So we got a girlfriend round. She came round that night. We were playing cards, so I'm getting the hair done. Next morning, Freo Oval, ran out in the ground. I said, hey, Jacko, you like this one, mate?
I played that game.
And
did it rattle him?
Go off?
Well, never rattled him. Subi won the game. And then at Rumours nightclub, where we all used to hang out, do our best work there hunting on any you know.
In your tracksuits?
Well, we did that a couple of times, yeah. Had arranged the 50 B-52s that we used to get after a game sitting on the bar when we walked in the door. That was quite ironic, thanks to the late and great Dennis Barberich as well for that. But so Jacko then comes in, he's got a couple of minders because this is when he'd done his filming for the Highwayman. He had a gold mine and he came in, "Hey, Langdon, man, you're at the entertainment centre, we're going to have a fight." I said, "Jacko, I'm a lover, not a fighter." Finally convinced him to come over into the West Coast corner where we were having a few quiet ones, and the rest is history. It was at the end of that year I got picked up by West Coast.
Paul, what did you think of all these characters that are floating around the West Coast Eagles at this point? Fish out of water or blend right in?
Took them as they were, because there was quite a few in Melbourne when I was over there. Each club's got their own, and no, I think it was just all a good laugh. If someone went overboard, they'd get dragged back. Yep. Someone would let them know, nice and quietly. No, not a problem for me. It's a lot of the time I took the shine off what I had to do or going out to play.
It seems they all came to play at the player review nights, which in retrospect in today's world just seems outrageous to me to hear. We'll get Bluey's take on summing it all up for us.
They were fantastic, and even like when you think about it in the modern world of a coach allowing you, and as tough and as hard as Mick was. I mean, we had choreographers come in. We had partners of board directors actually, go through almost like a play. I mean, it was a staged play, and we had different groups doing different things and different dances, and naturally everyone wants to dress up with the lippy on and basically in drag, if you like, and we're all beside ourselves about who wanted to fill those positions, and we all did that. Mitchell White had to be a lead actor, and so there's this story the whole way through. And I remember, we had 8,000 odd people, I think, in the day, or 6,000 odd people. We had more people turn up to our players' review, and the Wildcats are the Wildcats, as you know, in Perth. They're massive. We had more people turn up to our player review than the Wildcats were averaging their crowds at a home game at the entertainment centre. It was just unheard of. And again, you look back on it, how did Mick allow us to do that? But he obviously saw the benefit in getting the boys together, bonding away from the leather of the leather footballs and massage tables and all that sort of stuff. It was just another level we could go to.
Boys, what are your recollections of those crazy events?
Huge nights, weren't they? Like,
you couldn't get a ticket.
The best one was the first one.
Yeah.
Down at the Harbour
Wharf.
Down at the wharf.
Yeah.
Because the expectations were low.
Yeah, Mitch White, he was really drunk. And I mean, probably he couldn't even stand up at certain stages as a young kid, and he was only 19.
He's a pup.
19 or 20.
Yeah.
So that was a classic, because then he had to go out on stage and he was wobbling everywhere. So
Jufa and Jeff Miles doing the Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good, very good.
They talk about Juve taking off Mick and that being quite an adventurous skit.
Oh, look, it was sensational. And that was what he used to do quite often, didn't he? All the time. I used to mimic him. I think the best thing from what I remember about Juve and Heinze was drinking the night before the game, remember? Yeah. And Mick found out about it. And then Mick ended up delivering the beers to the room.
To the room.
He was actually the waiter.
The 6 crownies.
Yeah.
They had 6 crownies.
Yeah.
Mick knocked on the door and Juice gone, "Hang on, I just got to get some money." and people don't know this, but David Hines was out on the balcony then having a fag as well. So, and then Juve opened the door and he's gone, "Mick," and then Heinze, they reckon he's just thrown the durry over the thing, sat in the corner so he couldn't see who was with him, and then Mick's just gone, "Here you go, David, give me the money, and if you two don't get a kick tomorrow, you won't play the following week." And that was as it. And they actually went all right.
I was about to say, how did they play?
Yeah, they played, but that's what it was. And Mick went with the flow, I think.
What were your thoughts on Mick in general?
Oh, I love the man. I think he brought so much to the club. I mean, obviously he had some talent to work with, but he got us all together. He gave us a whole lot of information about Victorian sides, how to play Victorian grounds, the MCG. He was a hard taskmaster. You never felt comfortable with him. Well, I never did. And he demanded a lot, but he did so much preparation and research on the game. He was so well prepared, and that then translated into our preparation as players. Yeah, I mean, he was just fantastic for us. I mean, the results speak for themselves.
We were all on edge, weren't we? Like, no matter if you played well or not, you're always on edge, you know, because and that's the way he did it until the final game of the season, you know, throughout.
It was always keep a lid on it, wasn't it? No matter where we were, if we had a great win away or whatever, it was always like there's bigger fish to fry, keep it under control, keep a lid on it. So we probably didn't celebrate our wins as much as, you know, we might have done, but it was all about winning the big one.
Could you be yourself around him, Karl?
Yeah, no, that was no. Yeah, it was a bit of a practical joker. He didn't mind having a bit of fun. But we had to, from my recollection, going away from home there for a while, we had to win before we could have a drink on the way back.
Oh, yeah.
Because we didn't mind having a drink, right?
They didn't let you, so it was just a rule, if you lost, there was no piss on the plane?
No, nothing. If we win, we're in. And so we were pretty good on the road. We're probably better on the road than we were, to be honest, at home.
It's a good carrot to dangle, to be fair.
Because good teams win wherever they play, right? So, you know, that's what we became. And that was, you know, it's pretty easy to, when you're all young and don't have a lot going on in your life, you know, none of us were married, were we?
No, but in saying that, what about we did lose a game and Mick went off his head, this is away, he said no drinking. So David Hart, Chris Lewis, David Hines happened to play that game. I think it might have been 92 or 91. And we're all there sitting in the plane like goody two-shoes, all the rest of us, you know, eating our food, watch a bit of a movie. Next year, about halfway through the flight, David Hart gets up. He is blind. He's drunk as. And we go, yeah. So they brought some vodka onto the plane. They were ordering all these orange juices, those three. He gets up, walks down to the front of the plane and turns to Mick Moldhouse and goes, you coach bad today, Bushy. You let us down. And he was right. And he had a go at Mick and he's pointing the finger and we're all like this in the seats going, what's he doing? Oh. And Mick just copped it and that was it. And we were all going, oh, we're finished, we're going to do, you know, penalties and this and that. And he just went off at Mick and then turned around, went back and sat in his seat. Now, Mick never brought it up or anything. He just went with the flow and that's how good Mick was. He knew we would be on edge then. We had a bit of a laugh, but Juve got away with it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 92 when Mick actually told Maney to get back on the drink?
Yeah.
Because he went out of form? Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
Well, Jeppy, I think Jeppy went and told Maney, but it came from Mick, yes.
Yeah.
So he went off the grogs, about 6 weeks off, could not get a sniff.
Get a cut, sniff.
And they just said, basically, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So Maney's great, you know, his sort of pattern would be, for away game particularly, Thursday night he'd be out and about. Friday we'd have training at Subiaco Oval and it used to be the Chris Mayne wearing cologne. And he'd rock up on a Friday morning at training at 9 o'clock and it'd just be pouring out of his pores the smell of bourbon and all the rest of it. And he would train okay or well enough and that's fine. Then we'd go straight out to the airport. He'd jump on the plane, sleep the entire way, not even eat, just sleep the entire way to Melbourne, get off the plane, have a team meeting, then he'd eat like you've never seen. And bang, you'd never see him. That's it, you'd see him the next morning. Go up, next day, go out, 30 touches off a wing at the MCG, kick a couple, absolutely brain it. And that was just how he operated. So when he went off it, it didn't work for him. And they basically said, look, mate, do what you got to do. We want to win games.
How did you all find the travel factor? Was it challenging? Was it an inconvenience? Was it just full of frivolity and fantastic memories? How do you reflect on it?
I loved it.
Me too.
I was working long hours.
You were.
So I'd do the training, hop on the plane, I'd fall asleep. I'd get the nudge when the food came out, fall asleep and wake up when the plane landed.
Because you got to remember, we were all still working. Yeah. Like I had a full-time job. So we would go to training before work, after work, and we'd play on weekends. So it was like a getaway for the weekend for us. I used to take my Nintendo on the plane, and then it used to be come around to my room for all of those that used to play. Not everyone in the team used to play, but mate, we'd just be playing bloody Super Mario or whatever it was back in the day.
Were you rooming with teammates or it was solo rooms?
No, rooming. Teammates.
Unless you were a snorer.
Yes.
I was lucky to get one.
Mate, I remember getting back in the side and we're down at Geelong and I was rooming with you and you were snoring the roof off and I'm on the phone to the manager at the hotel saying, can you please find me another room?
It's all been fixed now.
Mate, at 2 a.m. I found another room.
It was probably the last 3 years I was playing going over, I had a room by myself.
I know why.
Are you drawing straws? How are you finding out who your team?
No, I just had Willow.
No,
You had Woosha.
yeah, I had Woosha
Johnny.
all my whole career.
But I think the travel was very galvanising, to be honest. And Carl alluded to it before. We were winning more games away than we were at home. And I think it was very galvanising. Having said that, at the end of my career, and I didn't play for 8 years or whatever, but I was really sick of travel and never wanted to step foot on an aeroplane ever again. I was really over it.
Yep. All right, so are there any other memories from the home and away season we want to touch on? Because there's a few that are floating about, but they might not be too prevalent in the mind. So I think you ended Craig Kelly's season at one point, diving over his knee. We've got the report.
Bad luck.
Report from the boundary umpire, which is an absolute classic Google read when you get deep into that.
Yeah, Chris Mew. Almost finished my own teammate, Chris Waterman. I got him one day. Do you remember that? In his hammy? Do you remember how badly bruised? I corked him straight. Poor Muddy. I slid in to try to get an opposition teammate because that was, that used to get the opposition, the more you could hurt an opposition team player, the very quickly you then had the fans going at you, which was important from how I used to like it. The quicker I could get them giving us ammunition to go harder, the better. So, and this day I slid in, it was a wet day, and I've got cannon straight into Muddy's thigh, and the blood for the next, few days. If I don't know if he's had his little session here, but if you ask him about it, I'm sure it'll be very, very fresh in his mind.
The reason I loved playing with Karl and Willow in the forward line. They never convinced it because you got two idiots, really. And the oppo looked at them. They were maniacs once they crossed the white line, absolute lunatics. And the pressure went off someone like myself, or Brett Heady, and Evo, as if he was resting in a forward pocket. And it'd all go onto those two because they were running around trying to kill people or kill the opposition, and it just took all the pressure off us a lot of the time.
Second effort.
And all that. As much as they were great footballers, I'll tell you, the opposition were in fear of them. But like I said, to me, it looked like they were just two idiots running around trying to make mayhem.
It's a bit like 92 grand final, right? Because early, that's all Geelong were trying to do. It started down back with Brownless on McIntosh, and then Stoneham had a crack, and then I remember McGrath's wing just missed and Barney. And then
Pikey going down.
Pikey obviously copping it from Gary Ablett, and I went down and sort of got a big, nice little chunk of his hair. That was really, a memorable collection of Gary Ablett.
You got it in a jar.
He didn't have much to give, mate.
No, but he had it. It was long and stringly. It hadn't been washed either. It was so greasy. I remember grabbing hold of it. It wasn't very nice. But that was how that game started. The boys talk about, being in it at half time. The reason why we felt like we were in it at half time, or I certainly did, and I think that's been expressed, is that because Geelong had a good hard crack, and we'd all stood up, including Pikey, who got back up. You wouldn't be allowed to keep playing these days, but he got back up and he finished it off.
We'll get to all that. We'll get to the game shortly.
Summer raised a really good point because we went in, we didn't have a centre forward really. It was just makeshift sort of job. And so having Karl and Willow there at half forward running amok, terrorising, the opposition with their tackling and their pressure, and they'd always bring the ball to ground and lay it off. They'd kick goals themselves as well, and they were talented players in their own right. But I think they just created havoc down there, which meant Summer could get off the leash. We didn't have a centre forward. The forward line functioned quite well, and it was really those two guys played just such a vital role in how it was functioning.
Before we move on, what is your memory of this Andrew Neil boundary umpire bringing in his own umpiring shirt to the tribunal with two handprints on the back, saying these are Karl's handprints, this is where he pushed me?
No, well, what happened was, and I'll never forget it, he actually said that I had taken 2 steps towards him and pushed him with both hands. So he brings his shirt to the tribunal, and on his shirt is exactly what I said. I had my hands out like this, right? He was that far behind the play. He ran into me. He was looking where he was. I was across the boundary like this. He ran into my hand as it went past. So he's got this sideways handprint, and he said, I've taken 2 steps towards him and pushed him with both hands. Well, basically they threw it out in 5 seconds.
Gotcha.
So that's how it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go to the first elimination final, Hawks. Subiaco Oval, there's 40,000 there. We had Mitchell White in the previous week in the episode saying that he was quite overawed by the intensity, the atmosphere as a teenager in that game. You've got Dunstall v Sumich at either end of the ground. You've got probably one of your best games for the Eagles, spoken about by other teammates in that prelim. Couple of snags, a lot of touches. You had midfield type numbers. You're rucking against the two Deer boys on your own again. What are our recollections of such a historic game that set everything up?
Well, mine first was I was panicking and, excuse the French, myself, because, I don't know, the boys, 91, the year before that, we lost that same type of game. At Subi was the first final ever in WA. So my recollection, Hawthorn again. So 12 months later, and it was just, I went in the game just going, we can't lose. And yeah, the crowd was going off. It was just one of those games. It was always going to be tight and tough. But I think the will to win just got us through at the end, I suppose. You blokes.
Oh, look, for me, I just thought back to 91 and being having the strips torn off me. And I thought, well, this is payback time for what had happened the previous year for me, even though I wasn't playing. As I said, I copped it from Mick. So this is where I have to stand up, right?
Is that when you binned the goal?
Yeah, that was the one running towards the beer snakes in the crowd. Remember it? And just charging off, that one. Yeah, I reckon it actually got, I don't know, it shouldn't have spun that way, Storm.
Yeah, well.
The way I kicked it, it shouldn't have spun, but it did.
You shouldn't have done a lot of things, but you did them.
Yeah, and that was, I think that was the same game where Woosha rang through Dermy in the pocket, or not?
No.
Was that was a different game? But yeah, that was I think one of the main reasons for me anyway was it was Hawthorn. We know how well credentialed they were. They had bloody blokes that you grew up watching, or I did, and idolised. So it was our time to shine.
Yeah, as Peter was saying, it's the nerves from the year before. Luckily, I wasn't in that, so I was looking forward to that game. Being a final against an old team of mine, a lot of old teammates, and I just thought it was a time to really show everyone what we as a team could do, and luckily it turned out that way. And but no, I just thought everyone's effort on that day with that crowd was just fantastic.
So then it goes to the Geelong game, and you win that. You get a week off, and you did 38 points, a comprehensive victory.
For us, we had a bit of luck too involved there, because that was an elimination. I think St Kilda beat Collingwood, or Collingwood beat St Kilda. It was above us, and that's why we went and played Geelong. And then that was to virtually play into the grand final. So one of those sides, I can't remember who was on top, St Kilda or Collingwood. So that was one of those sides won. So, and the other one who lost was on top of us. So that's why we skyrocketed into that game. And
Can I just quickly go back to Hawthorn? So that for me was the most significant game outside grand final, the two grand finals. Unbelievable. It was the last roll of the Hawthorn dice of that great Hawthorn era. You reeled off some names. And Malthouse gave me the job on Platten for the day, and it was the most physically exhausted I've ever been after a game of football. That guy just never stopped running. I've got so much respect for him. His hair smelt magnificent, unlike Gary Ablett's. His hair was like he'd washed it that morning. But he was just such a great competitor. He was unbelievable, and I was so, I suppose, honoured to get the job of tagging him. But it was such a significant victory to roll Hawthorn after the year before, and that was sort of their last roll of the dice, that great Hawthorn era.
Then it was Geelong, 38 points. Summer, you've had a day. I think you've kicked 8. And then you got a week off. So did Rumours get a spell for a couple of weeks in terms of that break? How did you approach having a week off, knowing the big dance was on the horizon?
Well, we trained at Leederville on the Saturday. And then we stayed on and watched the game.
Yeah.
Western Bulldogs versus Geelong.
Yeah. It was pretty much a quiet weekend from everyone. I don't think anyone was going to take the chance of going out drinking.
No.
Just go home, cotton wool, and just do what you had to do.
Then we go to the grand final, so we'll speed things up here. Summer, we've got Woosha telling stories of you watching grand final replays all night long. Just struggle to sleep. Is that the case?
Yeah, I get up early anyway. I'm up even now, 4:30. I can hardly sleep. So, and I know I roomed with Bush for 10 years while I played, and yeah, a lot of the time I just stayed up. I love watching TV, and then I was so nervous. I reckon I got about 3 hours sleep, that night. But I was watching the replays of the grand finals, and I wasn't doing the right thing by my teammate and John, there's no doubt, but he just copped that, as he normally does as a captain. He does the right thing, and his preparation would have been elite, but mine wasn't great really when you look at it. 3 hours sleep, if that, but I was just too nervous. I just couldn't sleep.
How were you boys night prior?
Well, I had a knee operation after that Geelong game. So when you're talking about not going out, I'd had a knee operation. So that was the week, 2 weeks before the AFL Grand Final.
Were you a bit nervous it wasn't going to come up?
Oh, my knee was rooted, but you just used to have injections and you couldn't feel it, so everything was fine. So that's how it was, and that used to happen regularly for me. So that was just what happened. So yeah, for me, the night before, I was again rooming with Will. I remember vividly that it had all been set up so that we all had rooms that would look, I'm assuming you blokes were the same, that was across the ground. So we could overlook it as it was building up for the game. So I remember even the night before, you could sort of see and feel a little bit of the atmosphere.
Because you had the bars downstairs, the pubs outside.
Yeah. And we did the parade, which we didn't do the year before.
Yeah, we did.
And another really important thing, which I think the Dockers overlooked one year, was we trained at the MCG on the Friday morning. And that for me was really important to get rid of the nerves, get the feel of where the wind was swirling.
It's wet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and have a good feel of the environment, and then go into the parade. And so then when we ran out the next day, there was a bit of familiarity around, we were here yesterday.
Then there's the infamous walk from the Hilton. So let's just hear Chris Lewis just sort of set the scene for us quickly.
Yeah, I don't know whose idea that was. Thought the club might have been saving on the bus or something. But no, that was good because we copped a bit of flack from the Geelong supporters. Also had a fair bit of support in the crowd from our supporters. So, yeah, once again, I think it just sort of got us into the mood for the game and sort of, gave us that belief that we could, win the game.
Were you at the forefront of most of the abuse? You were throwing a pink dummy at one point, weren't you?
No. Well, that was this pink dummy.
Yeah.
That was in the grand final parade the day before. So this is the official photographer's photo. And this bloke who barracked for Geelong, because I was in the back of the car, that's me sitting in the back of the car. So this bloke pulls that pink dummy out of his baby's mouth. Imagine a COVID world, right? He pulls it out of his baby's mouth and he reaches out across the barrier and he says, "Hey, Langdon, suck on this." So I grabbed it out of his hand before he could pull it away and stuck it in my mouth and started sucking on it for this guy, right? So that was the day before. Right. Then, when we're walking across, you'd remember there was these two little kids. They'd already lost half their teeth. I don't know if they hadn't grown, but it looked like they'd already fallen out.
Well, how old are they?
They're probably 9 or 10, and on their flags they had West Coast wankers, and they started doing laps around us, and Jacko had already oiled himself up, because he always oiled himself up. And I thought Jacko was going to eat a couple of children. It was like, it was early for Jacko to get fired up, but he got fired up walking through the park with these two little kids running around with their Geelong flags with West Coast wankers all over these flags. That's what I remember.
Did you all think it was going to escalate to another level, or you kind of knew it was just verbal abuse and that was it?
It was just verbal abuse as far as I remember, but it was quite pointed towards Louis, I remember, and thinking, it's a bit untidy. I didn't particularly like it. It was certainly, it galvanised us. It was like, righto, we're going into war here together. And so it was unpleasant, but it brought us together.
So the game kicks off and Pikey's dropped within the first few minutes of the game. Karl, you've made a long, sprint down to remonstrate, which Woosha recalls. What were the emotions like seeing that? I don't know how many people actually saw the incident.
I didn't see it.
I did. He elbowed him in the head. So I had a pretty good view of it from where I was. So he wasn't going to not be sent a message. But I had John there with me, which is always important. It's always good to have him alongside.
But when you look at it too, what Don did in getting up and how brave he was then to come back on is outstanding. As you said, that wouldn't happen in today's football. We understand that. But back then, just to see one of your mates come back on, you went, oh, okay, we're in this. We know where it's all going.
Good point to raise. Let's have a listen to Roo.
Yeah, I think so. I think we went in there and just the way we were playing and how things were panning out. you know, and having Brett Heady and Tommy's playing really good footy, and you had Donny Pike. Donny Pike went down with I think Ablett got hold of him, and seeing him go off the ground, because I seen the hit, and seen him go off the ground, and then seen him come back on, and then we went in the shed. It's like, you can't, like, he's just got knocked out and he's come back on. I said, there's no way these blokes are going to beat us. There's no way. All we have to do now is just, confidence-wise, just get the footy. We know our game plan, and the 20 blokes that were out there just had a job to do, and we did it.
Good that Roo had the confidence all along. You're 23 points down at one stage, Evo, before you caught a bit of fire.
I think we're 28 points down. Yeah, we were down, for sure.
Well, how were you feeling about it at the time?
Yeah, I don't think it was certainly no panic. No. It was just stay on track and stick to what we were doing, play our role. I think someone touched on it before. That play a role was a massive thing for us. Was, you know, we all couldn't be superstars. Just do your job, and so we stayed to the task. And 28 points became 10 at half time. And as I said before, when someone said, you know, the confidence at that half time, I really honestly felt we weren't going to be beaten at half time.
Let's not gloss over it. So the first of your goals was set up by yourself, Paul. Massive thump back into the 50. You're on hands and knees, Karl. You give one of many goal assists on the day to Tony. And then the second, you're doing a bit of dancing and selling candy and slotting through the second. Summer, you've put one through just before the halftime siren as well. So the confidence is up. Talk to me about perhaps how you were feeling at the time, knowing that you've, you know, not single-handedly, but you've had a fair little blue patch to get your team back into an AFL Grand Final.
Everyone had their jobs to do. So there was no panic, and even up to halfway through the second quarter, Geelong, you know, were doing their best, but we were just plodding along and knowing that there was still another half a game of footy to go after. I just think that we were probably just more relaxed than what they were.
And I think we were cohesive. So they you know, I think on paper they possibly had bigger stars than us. But we had this cohesion and this role playing of what we all had to do, and we stuck to it and didn't deviate from it, and you know, then eventually, you know, you crack a side, and that's what happened.
We touched on it a little bit earlier, the halftime rooms. So let's just have a quick listen to Robbie Wiley earlier in this series.
And to me, when I reflect, it was a bit of our learning curve. It was a bit of our way to go to win a flag. And you know, at halftime, I think we were 10 points down. But I could see from my eyes that the body language that the players didn't think they could win. There was no belief, as what Niz just said. Yet 12 months later, at half-time against Geelong, we're 10 points down. But there was no way we were going to lose because their body language, you could see it in their eyes, that they had learnt from last year and this year was going to be ours.
Do you remember standing up to Mick at half-time in the rooms and sort of challenging him, saying this wasn't the same type of feeling as 91? Do you remember that?
No, I don't actually.
I think Tim Jepp tells that story.
Yeah. Well, it probably did happen. Like I said, there was that much going on at half time, and you know, I was one of those blokes who was pretty vocal at times, but I was pretty direct. And don't worry, I was direct at Mick at times, and you know, that's where we used to come, you know, loggerheads together at certain times, and you know, which was great. I liked that because I challenged Mick at times in certain things that I didn't like, and you know, I always believed, I think it was 91, where and these are the little things that graduate into us winning a grand final. Like, you know, it was against Sydney, and I think I kicked 6 points for the game, didn't even kick a goal, and then Mick got up and says, all right, we just won this game, you know, anyone got anything to say? And I said, yeah, I've got something to say. I said, in front of the group, I said, I think we're big heads when we play at home. We got the crowd, everyone's happy, everyone does their own thing, they want to run around, kick a goal themselves, and yeah, salute to the crowd. I said, but when we play away, Mick, we're a tight unit, and we win, and we it's all together. But when we play here, at the moment, it's all about us being big heads. And no, he says, you get in the office. So after that, I went in the office, and me and him had one of the all-time great, you know, stoushes in the sense of him going at me and me going back at him. Trevor Nisbet was in there, and it was just getting stuff off our chest, and we challenged each other, and you move on. But they're the little things, like I said, we did as a team. And it wasn't only me. You know, I can remember Michael Brennan was very boisterous. He was very strong. As much as Woosha was strong, but Woosha was strong when he looked at you. He didn't have to say too much. If he looked at you a certain way, you knew you'd done the wrong thing. Michael Brennan, he used to tell you straight to your face. And we liked that stuff. And he used to tell Mick what was going on. I'm not happy in this area. That's, you know, Carl's doing the wrong thing. Mick, if you don't straighten him up, we want him out. That's how it was spoken back then. So it all alluded to, and like I said at half time, I might have went up and said, you know, we need to do this and that. We're going all right. But as we said, we were always going to win that game at half time. It was just one of those things.
We did the little things better in the end. Like when it came down to the crunch, those little moments that, you know, some have been seen, others when, you know, you talk about the work that was done inside, you know, you can make Peter Matera look good, right? Because he was the guy that you needed to get the ball to, because you knew that he had the speed and the skill to execute, which he did magnificently on that day. So you did whatever you could to try and get him the ball, especially when he's on fire.
But it's all those little, you know, the knock-on, you know, when you've got all this traffic around you and boots and elbows coming at you and your little knock-on to me, or it's a, you know, Dwayne Lamb run from behind Robert Scott. If they did a 100-metre sprint, Robert Scott would pants Fatty Lamb every day of the week, 10 metre, whatever. Yeah. How do you run him down? Ran him down through the middle of the MCG. It was just sheer desire and will and to bring him down. I mean, that was just so inspiring. But there's just so many of those tiny little...
Man, his foot, you know, his foot was...
broken.
Kept going. I told you, you know, you can't feel it. But the things that guys did, sacrificed and got the job done.
Louis could have kicked 3 easily that day.
Yeah.
He had 3 good snaps on goal and they all just missed. He could have easily had 3 and you know, I mean, there was, you know, Brett Heady came to life and came through the midfield after half time and had 13 touches for a quarter, which was a lot back then. So everyone just did their bit when they needed to. And
did you have something you were going to add someone on?
I was just saying, we knew each other really well and what made us tick and what didn't. And I think that was the thing over the period of, you know, 89, when there was a few started, 90, we had more come in, 91, and then that all closed, but we all knew each other, how to get the best out of each other. And, you know, a classic would be Roo, Peter Matera. You know, he was a confidence player. And if he had a bad game, say during the season, he'd come in on Monday and David Hart would rip into him about, oh, you let us down, you're no good, and this and that, you know, you're hopeless. And he'd be going around for the next 2 days, head down, oh, geez, what's going on? Come Thursday, or whatever, training, you know, he'd come over to, say, Karl or me and go, do you need the Ruger this week? Do you need the Roo? That's right. And we'd look at him and go, yeah, we need the Roo. We need your Roo. He'd go, you need me? And we said, yes, we need you. and then he'd go out, train the house down, and then be BOG on the weekend. But that's what we did. And then we pumped him up at certain stages, and, you know, so we knew each other, how to make each other tick.
He was phenomenal, Roo. And everyone thinks of the goals he's kicked and all that sort of stuff, but his defensive pressure was elite. How he could run people down, his tackling technique was just brilliant. He could drop guys, have the ball spill free and then run onto it. He was an exceptional player. He was the best player in the country at that time.
You know how I started this discussion with ability, right, about some of us weren't that good and we just played our roles in the team? Well, I remember Mick used to make us lay on our stomach on the boundary line and you had to get up on your feet and you had to run, right? Well, by the time I got up on my feet, he was 10 metres down the track. You just knew what your limits were straight away. He had that cat-like ability to be able to generally keep his feet, but to get to his feet after going to ground was just exceptional.
The other thing, and I don't know if Roo or Peter Matera said it, when he seen Mark Bairstow,
he would have loved that one.
He you know, 2 South men, they played together. I think they played together. Well, I played with Mark anyway. And when he reckons when he seen Mark come to him, he went, he just knew that he was going to have a bit of a day out, because the talk around town was they were going to go him, because the game before he was BOG.
Well, he was paranoid someone was going to run through him. Yeah,
someone was going to run through him. So when he seen Mark Bairstow, he reckons he's just gone like this, and he's, you know, and he had a day out. And to Mark's credit too, he had a good game as well. But, you know, 5 goals off a wing.
I did say to Roo, right, though, before that game started, because I don't know if you watched the tape very closely, but generally I would start at centre half forward and just be charging into the middle. And I never got the ball very often, but I was just trying to put wind past people, because that's what it generally was most of the time, because you couldn't, do too much. But I just would always say to Roo most games, but I remember vividly on grand final day, I said, mate, just bring them my way. If you can run past my way, then you can hopefully, if they're going the opposite direction, you can pick them off, because you could still pick them off when they were chasing.
It may seem obvious, but Mick said that, Tony, your contribution on the day was as big as anyone's on grand final day. Kind of goes without saying. Summer, you've had a hell of an outing, 6 goals won, 18 goals for the final series. Pretty stiff to come up against someone like Peter Matera, who's had the grand final of the millennium in terms of Norm Smith possible votings.
Oh, yeah, look, that's an individual award, and I can tell you now, and well done to Roo, but I'll take the Premiership medal, and people say, oh, yeah, well, he's just saying that. That's what I played for, and that's serious. I played, and it probably cost me at the end of my career, I can tell you now, because I just wanted to play with my teammates and have a good time and win footy, go with the ups and downs, and that was what I was about. And probably, like I said, probably cost me at the end of my career because I didn't probably work hard enough, not knowing. So, because I was just having a good time. And that's why the individual awards are great. I've always said, individual awards are great, but you can never beat a premiership with, we had 20 teammates in that one, and really even the players who missed out, they played a huge part as well. So we were very fortunate, but it was a team sport. And I look at some of the blokes on TV now, on Fox and all that, and they have their say and all that, but a lot of them haven't won anything. And I look at them, but I'll listen to a Jonathan Brown. And that may sound harsh, but I'll listen to him because he's a 3-time premiership player and he knows what he's talking about. Whereas others I won't listen to because I say, you really don't know what it takes to win one because you didn't. So, and then they'll say, oh, well, but he was a great captain and this and that. Well, was he? So John Worsfold is the greatest captain this club has ever had. I don't care what anyone say. So, because of what he did, and he was the first captain to win 92, he did 94, and then on top of that, coached the Premiership here. So he's the best captain in my eyes. But it was all about the team. So well done to Roo, but yeah, it would have been nice to win it anyway.
6 goals on grand final day is something pretty special. Let's have a listen to Bluey and his remarks on it.
Oh, not him.
And, his performance, no question, was a Norm Smith. But even Summer, I'll be the first one. I'm the first one to have a crack at Summer. I mean, he kicked, 400 or over 500 goals, but I also say he kicked 700 points as well. And how many more games could we won if he actually kicked straight? But that day, I think he kicked 6 straight in a grand final. So if that was the day we wanted Summer's leg to come straight, that was the day. And to kick 6 straight, full forward in a grand final, those two players centre forward for us offensively were just fantastic.
He's the best backhanded compliment man in the game.
He is.
Does it well.
No, he's magnificent. He was a great player too. When you look at it, their half back line, Djakovic, Worsfold, McKenna, it's unbelievable really. That and then our centre line. We just had, and I think Tony alluded to and Stiffy, we had stars, but they weren't like the Geelong stars. We just had a group of players that were pretty well even, with a few above, and then the rest were just all even, and that's probably why we won.
Well, I think we had, were they all 19? Djakovic, McIntosh and Mitch White?
Yeah, 19.
Yeah.
So, when you consider the age of 3 of your key position players, essentially, 3 of our taller players in our team.
And Billy's getting stuck into Ash from the start. And
because
Ash has done well.
Outside of those 3, the next 3 tallest blokes I think are us. Right, in our team. So to have 3 19-year-olds in your grand final side is, I think testament to firstly how good they were as young players, but how I think we were able to evolve into that special group that has that bond which Summer was talking about.
And we had Michael Brennan who started at centre half forward, you were half forward, Willow the other.
Yep.
And really that selection, you always had that where Monk could go to full back, McIntosh could go forward if we were in trouble, And I think that type of rotation, if that was ever going to happen, Millie could go forward for us, and you knew Monk would go straight to fullback.
Slothy could play both of those anyway as well.
And Mitch could do either, yeah. So
really
flexibility.
It was all really about us just getting out of Summers Road, to be perfectly honest, because he needed to have all that space that he could operate in. Because
and demanded that space.
One thing, like at the Wacker especially, like, you know, get out of my road! You know, he'd be shouting at you. So the quicker he could get out of his road, because one thing he was brilliant at, and, you know, one thing that he was always very good at is on the lead and being able to grab the footy, right? Which is one of his very, very strong points, which is why he had so many shots.
Let's talk final siren. So you were itching to get back on the ground. Were you jogging around the boundary hoping to be on for the final siren?
Yeah, well, as I said, I'd had a knee operation a couple of weeks before that game and I couldn't feel my knee. But I think one thing that you want to be is on the ground if you can be, so that you can celebrate, and got my wish, which was good.
Let's hear from Pikey around the final siren just quickly.
Did the lap one or two quick. We should have spent longer out there because we were back in the rooms before we knew it. We're all that pumped up and excited. We just sort of whipped around the lap of honour. Whereas nowadays they take their time. But and the special part of being the first team from outside Victoria to win it as well, and the journey we've been on as a club and as a team to get to that point, then it just spills out with everyone. So you've got all the guys who weren't playing ripping on the ground. You've got, the guys who obviously did play getting around each other. Then you've got all the staff and you've got the coaches, and everyone comes down, and there's just this mass of all these people, and that's why you play. That's why you're involved. Is you get a chance to enjoy it from everyone who's been part of it.
What are the recollections from final siren onwards, boys? We could include the night, the weekend.
Hugging him and Jacko.
Yeah, Jacko's down there.
How does Jacko get there?
Yeah, because he wanted to kick a goal.
Right.
He knew we were in front, so he says, I edged down because I was trying to sniff a goal. Yeah. So that's why he was down there.
Right. So see, I didn't know that part. But yeah, that's the first thing I remember is hugging those two.
Yeah.
It was a big sense of relief though, wasn't it, for me, at least. Just that whole, so excited about what we'd achieved, but really relief was the overwhelming feeling for me.
Ecstatic person I saw was the Maney jumping off the seat next to me. And that's been seen a million times.
Who was rucking then?
I don't know.
It was Jacko.
It was Jacko?
Yes.
Okay, because I went to the forward pocket, then came off.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I came on then for you. That must have been the chain of events. That must have been the chain of events that unfolded.
There you go. A lot of the boys talk of just pure exhaustion. That Saturday night that wasn't raging till all hours. It was just...
Oh, it depends. I didn't go out because I was knackered because of physically, but there was a few that went out and had a good time.
I was in bed at 9.
The bloke that I was rooming with didn't come home till the next morning, almost missed the kite on the way home.
Who was that?
Well, my good mate Peter Wilson. He was out having some fun. Don't worry about that. And he wasn't on his Pat Malone either. And I'll always remember that plane trip home.
Oh, the plane trip. And then landing and coming in with the buses, and all the people lining the streets.
Brearley Ave in the airport, at Brearley Ave, which was the old entrance into the airport, was just lined up with cars, and they was drinking beers, and they had the Eskies out the back, and then there was 15,000 people at Subiaco.
Yeah.
Well, they talk about the bus being too tinted, so no one could even see you in the bus. I think you had to take turns. They say, holding the cup out the door or giving the fans something to look at rather than just a police escorted black bus.
We didn't really know how big it was, really. We there at the moment the siren going for us, it was elation and everything, and your teammates and staff afterwards, and we went back. I think we had to wear our suit and tie back at the Hilton for a function, but then coming back to WA, we just probably didn't realise how big it was for WA, and then seeing the streets aligned and everything else, and over the next 2 or 3 days, or even 2 or 3 weeks, it was phenomenal. It was unbelievable, and it meant so much to everyone here in WA, which is probably the biggest thing for us as a group.
I love that bit of footage of Kwinana Freeway, and there's like one car every minute or two. It's just empty.
I remember on the plane on the way home though, it was open slather, because I remember taking a bottle of bourbon, and the bottle of bourbon was almost gone by the time I got home. And I remember, and I don't know if you blokes remember, but I reckon you probably will if I remind you, is that I was on the microphone. And I was doing Frank Spencer.
Yes.
Can you please put your seatbelts on? And so was throwing that into the equation on the way back. It was the best plane trip I think that any of us have ever had, even though there's a few frosty memories, I'd suggest.
Didn't Fatty go through the X-ray machine?
Yeah, no. Fatty, quick story on that one. Right. He did go out to about, I think, 3 or 4 in the morning, and then he had to catch a taxi, all right? So he's called his taxi, and he says, oh, got to go to such and such, Hilton. And the taxi driver's looking at him and he goes, bloody Hilton. Yeah. So he hops in, he says, Hilton, and he's half drunk, So he's gone to the Hilton, so it was around the corner. So he's called a taxi and it cost $1.50, all right? So, but the worst thing about it is, at 3 in the morning, he's got out of the taxi and bolted. Didn't want to pay the bloke. And the taxi drivers got out and started running after him through the thing, and he's bolted. I think Trevor Nisbet happened to be in the foyer, and he's seen Fatty come past, street and past, and this bloke's saying, hey! And he says, oh, hang on, mate, what's up? What did he do? He never paid me for the taxi. And he says, all right, well, how much, mate? Here, how much I'll pay? It's all right, he's all right. He said, $1.50. And Nizzy, what? I think Nizzy gave him $5 and then went on his way.
Oh, fats.
There's a few mentions of the reunions, the catch-ups. You like to do it annually. There's obviously the big lunch that's happening this year around the Geelong fixture. Let's just quickly dial into Peter Matera and how he likes to, the joys of reminiscing.
Oh, the bond is always there, and it's like when we used to party hard, on and off the field. It's a group of blokes that pretty much changed history in AFL, changed footy in general in Western Australia. Being the AFL side to do it, and just the group when we get together in one room, and you reminisce on how they look, body shape, facial, all that type of stuff. It's just like yesterday when you catch up with them. And that bond, what we went through in the early 90s and through our footy careers, that bond will never change, I don't think, because it's a group of blokes that just went through a lot, and created history in a way of being the first side to take it out of Melbourne. So yeah, and we just can't wait to get on it, because when we get on it, we party, and these reunions are one of the best, because it's a time to reflect, and there's only one bloke missing, and he would be standing on tables, he would be the centre of attention, because he's that type of bloke, and we all wish when we're there, he's the only bloke that we'd always wanted to see what his reaction of these reunions would have been, because he was a big part of what we went through, and we all miss him, and we'll remember it. We'll remember what he did, and we talk about it. But that 22 that played in that game, you can't take it away from us.
He was judged the best clubman, and he was our social organiser, wasn't he?
Mainly, yeah.
He was like the bloke that had the connections with. A lot of the people around town that we used to go and enjoy ourselves at. But the one thing that, like Roo says there, I mean, it's amazing. Like when you get together with your mates that you've achieved with, and I could relate this back to Subi and winning the Premiership at Subi as well. When I get together with a few of those blokes, you're all back when you're 18 and 20 and 23 again, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't matter how old you are, but once you get together with all the boys, you'll probably have a couple too many, and you'll just be talking about all the things that we used to get up to and thinking about it only seemed like yesterday, which it does.
The stories grow, they get bigger.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more add-ons,
mayonnaise.
A few add-ons every now and then, and Tim Jett's probably the biggest add-on that to a story.
Well, there's always good banter between who was the best side, 92 or 94, and then we always tell David Hart it's 92 because he wasn't, and then it's 92 or 06, who's the better side, so there's lots of that sort of.
We're all West Australian though in 92. That's the special part, right? There was no external influence. Every single one of us were West Australians in 92. So that's nothing that I don't think that'll ever be repeated again.
Final question to you all, jump in when you want. How do you see the significance of the Premiership now upon reflection?
It's huge. It brought the state together. It grew football over here a lot quicker than what it would have, as in waffle, and all those kind of things. And I think it was just huge, that first one, yeah.
I mean, Summer and I were talking to it before we got going today. I mean, the club was broke in 1989. You know, we were at rock bottom. We were nomads. We never had a training base. We used to be flying around town training wherever we could.
Midland Guildford were training.
Arthur Pexton Memorial Oval, which is the first 18 oval at Guildford Grammar, where we'd train at night. Cowpats, Dean Turner goes racing off into the night and cuts his leg open on a star picket that was
and Rod
in the
Moore
ground.
was stitching him up, and I remember they just had lights down on him and moths everywhere because it was a hot summer's night and mozzies everywhere, and you got Rod Moore stitching him up, and the leg was a huge cut. Yeah, so we went through a fair bit of pain with those past players as well.
And that Essendon defeat, kicking 1 goal 6.
1 goal 12.
3 years later, winning a flag.
100s after it. That was enjoyable as well.
So it didn't just happen, did it?
No.
But it grows, and that's why I get a little bit peeved off right now, and I get peeved off, and I don't mind saying it, about the media in WA are disappointing, having a crack at West Coast at the moment. And I know this is about 92, but it all relates, in my opinion. This club has put a lot of money into WA football over 30 years, 80 to 100 million into Western Australian football. And, they're going through a tough time. And at the end of the day, hey, scrutinise them. There are no problems with that. But when you go below the belt with some of the comments that are made in the media to this club, that's where I get disappointed, because this club's done a lot to WA football and has helped WA football at grassroots, Sunday league, Saturday leagues, all that type of stuff, and put a lot of money into WA football. So that's why I think now I realise how big 92 was, because that was the start of this club helping WA football over the last 30 odd years, and what it's done for WA football. And we were probably the catalyst to start it off by winning a premiership, and the characters you got around this table and the other 16, play a big part.
Well, and I think it meant it's possible for any team around Australia now as a national competition to win it. We did it, and obviously being the first, I think it gave us credibility. I don't think the Melbourne sides really rated West Coast up until that point in time, and as I said, it made it possible for other interstate sides to do it. So
yeah, I mean, we were called the West Coast Weagles, and everything was, they'll never be able to do this, and that was why it was so satisfying with that pink dummy. Because when we went back to the Glass House after we won the game, they were actually recording Hey Hey It's Saturday. And Daryl Summers was actually up there on the stage, and obviously I got a chance to go up on the stage, and he said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "Feel fantastic." And I gave Daryl Summers that pink dummy and said, "Give this pink dummy to all those blokes that used to work on the 7 football show on the Sunday morning," and I said, "and get them to suck on this." So, true to their word, the next morning, here they all were sucking on the same pink dummy I was on the Friday before. Thank God we won that grand final, by the way. Imagine what Mick would have done to me after 91. Hey?
The dummy did the rounds.
Imagine.
Windy Hill, Moorabbin, Victoria Park, some of the grounds we played at were unbelievable. And some of talking about abuse over the fence and that, and I got it firsthand. And, at the end of the day, you just cop that. Even at Victoria Park, I don't know, you remember, we won most times there, and you walk up a race, and this is why it's stuck in our minds in 89, 90, these people were pouring stuff on us, and it wasn't beer.
Warm beer.
It was warm.
It wasn't beer.
Yeah, and it wasn't beer. Yep. Yeah, warm something. And I used to get all this over and then go in and have a cold shower and mud and everything, and then you used to hop on the plane, and then 3 or 4 hours later you get home, then you had a proper shower. So these are the things we did as a group that just kept in the back of our minds. Eventually, that really strode us to make sure we win a grand final, at least one, and we were fortunate enough to win 2.
Boys, it's been an absolute pleasure sitting down and reminiscing and listening to the stories. Next week, or the next episode, we've got McIntosh, Brennan, Lamb and Waterman sitting in your seats. How you reckon they're going to go?
Pretty good. You won't get much out of Ash, but Monkey will have some stories.
Muddy will be good.
Muddy will be good. Who was the 4th one?
Waterman, Lamb.
Oh, Fatty. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully he tells that taxi story.
Just ask Fatty. I mean, he was talking about the stories of Victoria Park. They used to throw 50-cent coins at us back at Victoria Park. Fatty used to always have his socks down because he used to pick up the coins, put them in his socks.
True stories. He used to collect them and then give them to the trainer. He gives me some water. Here, take that $2 a year. I've got, 4.50s. Just take that. I'll get it to you after.
But the anchor leg's the one to look forward to. So we've got Brett Heady, Kempy, Willow and Turles coming in.
Oh. Heady and Kemp, like the Siamese twins, and there's a few stories about the Kookaburra calls. So just make sure you ask them about a couple of those stories going back in the day.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for finding the time to come in and reminisce and tell some stories of 1992. And of course, that brings us to the end of this episode of History Makers. Make sure to tune into the next one. Again, thanks for your company.